2024 at 6 p.m. Please take a roll call.
Ms. Carney.
Here.
Mr. Shalal. Ms. Doobie.
Here.
Ms. Fernandez.
Here.
Ms. Grant. Mr. Charbonneau.
Here, please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll move right into public participation. We have 3 people who have signed up. Miss McClellan.
Like it's been a while since we've seen each other. On the off chance you forgot, my name is Elizabeth McClellan and I teach 2nd grade at Baldwin Elementary School. Better? Okay. I know what I'm gonna say next might come as a shock. Better? Hello, here we go. Okay. I know what I'm going to say next might come as a shock, but I'm not here to talk about the need for translations today. I'm here for a far more dramatic reason, quite literally. Disney Musicals in Schools is a free program offered to a limited number of public elementary schools each year. Through the program, schools receive free performance rights and a show kit materials to a 30-minute Disney musical written for elementary school performers. Over the course of a semester, professional teaching artists guide school teachers through the process of creating a musical with student performers. For 3 years, schools participate in this program. They receive the training necessary for teachers to continue a tradition of theater education for years to come. Rhode Island is one of 25 states that have this amazing program available to students, thanks to our community partner, the Providence Performing Arts Center. 3 years ago, Baldwin was approached to start the Disney Musicals in Schools program in Pawtucket. Baldwin's first year was the 2021-2022 school year. And the next school year, Kirby McCabe and Winters Elementary School were able to be part of this program as well. In total, there have only been 12 schools in the state that have been invited to have this amazing opportunity for students. The program is an initiative developed by the Disney Theatrical Group to create sustainable theater programs in under-resourced elementary schools. The Baldwin team has put on 3 amazing performances, and we are gearing up to start planning fundraisers and donation requests for our 4th. We understood we were responsible for raising funds to purchase any materials for the program, including the show kit, costumes, props, set items. We raised enough funds previously to support the physical needs of this program. For the past 3 years, the district has paid staff members to run this after-school program. We were aware the district would not be allocating funds for the materials for this program, but it was never communicated to us that we would also need to fundraise for compensating the staff to run the program. The program is tiered to allow the groups to build funds so they can be self-sufficient after the 3rd year for materials needed, which we are. We have raised funds, and in doing that, we have gained the support of the Baldwin community. And interest for this program has grown exponentially. Diverse learners and multilingual learners participate in the program, and we have seen an increase in confidence and participation in class with the students who participate in this program. Through the art club and art class, the whole school has worked together to create the set. Our music teacher incorporated the songs into his lessons. Past students shared that they were excited for other opportunities to perform when they go to middle and high school. We do have a pretty popular art school in the district that students, even at the elementary level, are looking forward to applying to attend when they're able. Also, the new school we're moving into is going to have an actual stage that we can perform on. The future of the Disney Musical in School program at Baldwin had so many things to look forward to. On the first day of school this year, students asked what show we were doing, when it would start, and if they could participate. When we inquired about getting it started, this year, it was communicated the district did not allocate funds to pay staff to run the Disney Musicals in Schools program at Baldwin. When we questioned further, we were told that we were supposed to fundraise for our compensation, and that didn't seem right. As a classroom teacher and with Baldwin not being a community school, finding and applying for grants has proven to be quite difficult as there isn't enough time to do it all. The rehearsal time is the only time program staff are compensated for, 55 hours of work. This does not include the time spent making, creating, collecting, organizing forms and flyers, shopping for materials, creating costumes, props, and set pieces, selling tickets, communicating with families, sending invitations to community members, and all the other things I can't remember that we've done. Our district supports several after-school programs and compensates members accordingly. I'm asking for you to find a way to compensate staff to continue this extraordinary program. It's not possible for us to volunteer the time needed to facilitate this program with fidelity. We are the only school on our side of the city involved in this program. Baldwin kids deserve this opportunity. I'm asking for your help to find the funds to staff this amazing program. It would be terrible if community partners stopped working with us because we didn't continue programs they helped us start. I feel compelled to paraphrase this quote from the Disney Musicals in Schools website. Imagine students singing, acting, dancing on stage, or working behind the scenes to make magic happen. Disney Musical in Schools presents a special opportunity for public elementary schools to bring the magic of student performance in their communities. The benefits of musical theater last, and this program specifically, lasts long after the curtain closes, from 21st century skills like creativity and collaboration, to social skills like confidence and empathy, to academic skills like reading, speaking, and listening. Music theater engages students in dynamic ways. It would be terrible for our kids to no longer have this exceptional opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McClellan. Mr. Segala.
Hello, everyone. Okay. Today, I want to address some concerning behavior exhibited by Pawtucket Teachers Union Alliance President Ronald Brupri. On Election Day, members of the Teachers Alliance handed out a flyer endorsing their preferred candidates. There was no indication at the time of who paid for these flyers. No entity took claim for the flyers until the last school committee meeting when a teacher stood here and said the Pawtucket Teachers Alliance was responsible for the flyers, and this was a regular thing that they do. Fine enough, but again, nobody took claim to those flyers. The flyer featured the names and faces of all the Democratic candidates running, excluding three: Marsha Fernandez, Jay Charbonneau, and Kimberly Grant. On October 18th, the Pawtucket Teachers Alliance posted the flyer on their Facebook page. They offered a new round of endorsements to the same candidates again, except this time they included Kimberly Grant. If you're wondering why she was included in their endorsement now and not during the primaries, the answer is simple. She donated school supplies to the Unity Project for their back-to-school giveaway at Slater Middle School. I know what you're thinking. What's wrong with that? Well, Christine Bento runs the Unity Project, and Ronald has a personal grievance with Miss Bento. So when Kim Grant generously donated school supplies because she wasn't concerned about the political outlook of it, she was just trying to help the kids, which is admirable. Ronald saw her as working for the other side. So once the Pawtucket Teachers Alliance posted their endorsement, someone took a screenshot of the post and edited it to make it look like the Pawtucket Teachers Alliance were endorsing different candidates. It was shared by Miss Bento and then shared by me. Ronald Brupri was quick to comment on my page, accusing me of sharing false information, pretending to be the Pawtucket Teachers Alliance. I pointed out the post was clearly edited, and people could easily go to the Pawtucket Teachers Alliance page to authenticate the post. It wasn't shared from their page, so clearly if people were confused, they could have checked. Not now, but they could have. I also pointed out that he was very quick to condemn me for sharing a clearly edited post, but he nor the Pawtucket Teachers Alliance ever publicly condemned the attack flyer sent out before the September primaries. He then lied and said he did condemn those attacks at the time. He attempted to show a fabricated condemnation in the comments. When I called him out and proved that this was clearly not a real condemnation, he deleted his comments. I wanted to double check and verify, so I went onto the Pawtucket Teachers Alliance page. I scrolled all the way back to July, way before the mailers were sent out, and found no condemnation of that attack mailer. And at the time, I was checking to see if anybody condemned those those mailers because I personally was condemning the mailers and multiple other people online, and nobody stepped in and said, "Oh, we also condemn these mailers. That's terrible." Nobody. I scrolled down. I'm sorry. He also used the Pawtucket Teachers Alliance page to fabricate that lie. He must have forgot to switch over when he was commenting. I have all the screenshots to prove what I'm saying, and they're posted on my Facebook page for anyone who wants to go and check for themselves. For those of you that don't know, there was an attack mailer sent out to thousands of Pawtucket voters prior to the September primary. These mailers were paid for by the Pawtucket Parents for Better Schools, and if you attempt to go and look up information about this organization, you cannot find anything about it, or who runs it, or who's in charge of it, or anything. The attack mailers went after Jay Charbonneau, Marcia Fernandez, and Kim Grant, the same members who were excluded from the Pawtucket Teachers Alliance's Election Day flyers. They referred to Marcia, Jay, and Kim as disasters for public schools. The flyer also described the superintendent as inexperienced and severely overmatched. Whatever that means. This is obviously absurd. Many of us condemn, as I said, of us condemn these flyers on social media and in other outlets. Notably, again, Ronald Beaupre and the Pawtucket Teacher Alliance remained silent. Let's get back to Ronald. After he deleted his comments off my post, he moved to the Pawtucket Teacher Alliance page and reshared their original endorsement post again, with a official condemnation of Christine Bento and I for posting the edited endorsement, accused us again of attempting to, quote, make the public believe the alliance is supporting, unquote, other candidates. That was not the intention, clearly. I know voters are smart enough to see the post was edited and smart enough to go to the page to verify its authenticity. Sorry to repeat myself, but it's not clear to some people. I then shared screenshots of Ronald's previous comments onto the condemnation post because I wanted to show people what was really going on, since he has a habit of deleting comments and moving on. My comments were deleted and I could no longer access the page. The next day, on October 19th, somebody shared screenshots of yet another condemnation post, too, on the Pawtucket Teachers Alliance page. In this post, he wrote, I quote, "They ask if the Alliance condemns the negative political advertisements mailed in early September ahead of the primaries. As was stated then, the Pawtucket Teachers Alliance has not and will never participate nor condone slander campaigns or personal attacks." Again, using this page, he lied. They never offered a condemnation of these attack mailers or the multiple coordinated attacks against Superintendent Royale in the media and on social media. I pointed this out again on my own Facebook page, and then people were telling me they could no longer access the Pawtucket Teachers Alliance page. At first, I thought maybe they were just blocking my friends and people that know me, but no, nobody can access the page. It's been taken down. Makes you think, why? Why was it taken down? What's on there that they don't want you to see? Multiple teachers have stood this podium defending their union president. But has he been up here to defend you? Has he been up here to talk for you? No. He goes online and starts fights with community leaders and, as he says, former mayoral candidates, but he does not come in public, stand up here and defend himself, or say anything, or defend you. I ask the teachers again, is he the man that you want to represent you? A man who offers condemnation of Facebook posts, but offers no condemnations of real-life attack mailers with consequences, attacking people. A man who retaliates against all those who dare challenge his authority. A man who picks fights with the community leaders and calls out teachers for communicating with these community leaders. Is that who you want in charge? Is that who you want to represent you? I mean, if you guys are so confident that he does represent you, why don't you hold a vote? Hold a vote. I know teachers have their own mind. You're all independent people. And then many of you have spoken out behind the scenes because you're scared to be retaliated against, and I understand. I want you to know I'll stand up for you. And I'm sure there's members of the Alliance that would gladly represent you, would gladly stand up here and gladly fight for you and not get caught up in all the drama, and would gladly work with community members to better your lives and the lives of your students. So again, I ask you, how does his actions help you? How? Do you feel represented? And if you do, that's a scary thought. Thank you.
Ms. Bento.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to ask for your patience, as I did write some things down so that I won't skip anything. And because I don't have a union president writing things down for me so that I can read them properly, I'm just a regular community leader. So I'm going to take my time because I speak on behalf of many. And I feel like this is the only time that community leaders, parents, members get to come here and bring our concerns to you guys. I'm kind of getting tired of the Teachers Alliance sending people down here to take our time. I'm not trying to be bad or negative, but I'm being real. This is our city, Pawtucket. This is the Pawtucket School Committee meeting. I'm starting to have a little bit of a problem with teachers playing politics in our city, especially the ones who don't live here. On top of that, well, I'll get to that point afterwards, but I want to stick to my promise that I've made to this committee that I'm not going to let one subject go. I'm going to keep bringing it up until it's addressed. For those of you who don't know, there was an incident that took place at the school department building in August, and it involved a school committee member acting irate. I have requested information. I have requested incident reports that don't exist, which is very disturbing. I know I sound like I'm repeating myself, but I'm going to until everybody understands that I'm not going to go away. I put in an APRA request for the video, which I got. And I'm so glad that Miss Rabbit is sitting there today, because I assume you're here in place of the superintendent and will have an answer finally for what I keep addressing you about. Not only are you the assistant superintendent and was there responding, you're on video responding. So it's more disturbing to me that you actually responded to the incident and you didn't write an incident report, nor did you have anyone else write an incident report. And the other person that was involved on the video was the director, I believe, of human resources, who's supposed to, correct me if I'm wrong, you know, I'm just a person, is supposed to look out for the best interest of staff. So if a staff member was brought to tears, I would think that the person that is in charge of human resources would have had that person write an incident report. Unfortunately, I've found out through asking other people, there is nothing in place that holds you school committee members or apparently school administrators to make sure that those things are in place. That's creepy. Who is holding you guys responsible for your actions? You guys are humans just like the rest of us. Just like I can slip up and do something that everybody's going to judge me for, all of you can do the same thing. As a matter of fact, in the last 2 months, every single time I spoke here, I've pointed out of 2 of you school committee members who have acted a fool over and over and over again. What's the point of me telling you guys? No one can do nothing about it. That's weird. Because if I sat here right now and became irate, I'd be threatened with the police, or I'd be asked to leave. So I would be held responsible for me, but other people on your team can go to inside of buildings and act complete fool and scare the bejesus out of people, and none of you can do anything about it. And as much as I've sat here and talked about it every single time, it's not being put on the agenda. It's not being addressed. Miss Rabbit looks at me like I'm some kind of robot because I've addressed her every single time. I've addressed you directly every single time. And today you're sitting in the superintendent's chair. I would hope that at the end of this, you have something to say. Moving on to the next thing. I'm going to say that to the teacher who spoke previously, she also spoke at the last meeting. I'm going to backtrack. The last meeting, for those of you who weren't here, she came to mention something about the translation again. And I'm not being negative. I spoke to her after the meeting, so I'm not really targeting her directly just because. There's a reason why I'm saying it. Is because if we have to come here as voters, taxpayers, parents, whatever, and we have to listen to teachers coming here to complain. Nobody on Ronnie Boy's team ever comes here with something positive to say. And when the superintendent says something positive, him and his little minions, they don't clap at all. It's almost like nothing just happened. But whenever it comes to something negative, they're quick to come here and come talk about it. So my point to that is, last meeting, I asked that teacher who brought up the translation thing, because it's something that I've been fighting for a long time. I specifically asked her, why does she come here with her complaints, right? And she kept saying to me, because of a chain of command. Okay, I understand plain English, chain of command. So as I kept asking her, what is the chain of command? We only got so far as to the principal. So I'm a little bit, I actually, I'm not gonna lie, I did my research to find out what the chain of command is. So issues that are contractual, right? Each school has a union representative who then reports to the principal and then brings it to the administration. Non-contractual take directly to the assistant principal or principal, and they can take it to the admins to get it resolved. So my question to her last meeting was, who in the line of command told her to skip over the whole process and come to my Pawtucket School Committee meeting to address it to you guys? Because the school committee can't do nothing about whatever her complaints are. And I'm trying to help her understand that she does have a chain of command. I'm trying to help her go utilize it instead of coming here. See, I don't have a chain of command. I can't go to a school principal and say, hey, this is what I find wrong that's going on with the Teachers Alliance and Ronnie and everyone else. I have to come here. This is my public input time. I have to come here. She has her, along with all the other teachers that come here when Ronnie tells them to, they have a chain of command. They have other tools and other ways to get things resolved. Why is everyone's time being wasted here on things that cannot be resolved here in this room? You just come in here. You know what I think it is? I think it's the Teachers Alliance ways of exposing all these negative things they see going on, right? Because they're being told that they're not being supported enough. Interestingly, I'm going to go back again and say, the other teacher that came up here that was reading a script wrote to her, I believe, by the union president, but that's just my guess, saying that no one stands up for them. Listen, I get real passionate about this stuff because it's like all this stuff is common sense. I don't have a degree in education, and I have to come here every week and point this out to you guys. How is she going to come here and say no one's standing up for them? They have a whole teachers alliance, a whole union president who is a bully. Parents and community leaders don't have anybody coming over here to represent us. We don't pay somebody. We don't have a whole page that'll come after everybody that we send them after. They have a whole union, and they're still complaining no one stands up for us. Give me a break. This is the problem. See, when teachers who don't come to these meetings or who watch it on there, and they have this idea that Bento doesn't like any of the teachers. No, what I have a problem with is the ones that come here and represent teachers. None of them are friendly. They all come over here and they want to complain, skip the whole chain of command and come and disrespect their bosses sitting here in this room. And us as parents and teachers and community leaders are supposed to be fine and dandy with that. We're supposed to trust them with our children when they can't even behave as adults. There's a huge problem with that. So, and I'm going to tap into what Cameron said. In that comment section, there were some people representing the Teachers Alliance. One guy, Cal Carpenter, who was coming in defense of Ronnie. He said that teachers and the Teachers Alliance are not supposed to answer to anyone. They just are supposed to fight for their contract. And on top of that, he went on to say, in quotes, I have the screenshot, that anybody who doesn't align with what Cameron, specifically Cameron and I, say at these meetings are going to form groups to shut us down. I wish Ronnie boy was in this room right now, because I've got a few words for him. He can bring on whoever he wants to. He can bring, if this is going to be a war of teachers against parents or teachers against the community, and if that's what they want to accomplish and they're going to feel so accomplished doing it, how they walk away from this podium every time they recite my words, they think they just accomplished something, bring it on. Bring it on. If we have to form an alliance, we'll form an alliance. But guess what? This whole system, the school committee, the school department, the teachers, the teacher alliance, you're all looking pretty ugly right now. Just a few of us come up here and stand up for the community, and we're the ones who are going to be shut down because Ronnie said so. All right, that's good. Sounds good to me. You know, Ronnie is the same one who will sit here and go on Facebook and say, we're losing good teachers. All right. See, I don't put everything on Facebook, and I don't talk about everything here, but he was the same one that said we're losing good teachers. Okay, for those of you who want proof, Miss Pompili. You want to know why a lot of parents don't come down here or community leaders don't come down here to come and speak to you guys? Because the retaliation is real. He's so sad to lose Miss Pompili. No, the garbage took itself out. That's how I look at it. Miss Pompili would come down to these meetings, just like some of the teachers who are speaking at this podium and coming down with Ronnie, paying attention to who we are and what we're saying. And guess what they're doing? They're going back to the classroom and retaliating on the children that we're related to. Right, Miss Rabbit? You know about that, right? Because you were in the building, the school, where I had to go report to her picking on my stepdaughter, right? You were there. You made a call saying that I was irate when all I was doing was speaking to somebody about the situation. I'm going to keep pointing you out because I've had a lot of history with you where you've done some crazy things, and every time you're confronted, you have nothing to say, and you're the assistant superintendent. Something wrong with this circus. That's why parents don't come down here. Why do I keep coming down here? Because I don't give a whatever word you want to put after that. If Ronnie wants a war between teachers and community leaders with his fine. I don't think teachers have a place in politics, especially in the city. You want to come here and teach? Some of them are really good. I'm going to say that with my own mouth. Some of them are good. They go, they teach, they do their job, they go home. Then there are the few that go do their job. They don't just go home. They come here to these meetings afterwards. And they come to our polling stations to hand out flyers as to who should be our representatives at this table. Come on, guys. Make that make sense for me. How? Ronnie Boy, as the union president, can create these flyers, demand that his people go out there and hand them out to our taxpayers and our voters. He don't live here. He don't pay taxes here. He makes his money here. How is that right that the union and the teachers can play politics? So I'll be out there at the polls. And if they want to call me a bully, feel free. I want you guys to know right now, Ronnie Boy is starting this war. And if teachers know better, replace them, get rid of them, and stop following his directions. Because you don't want a war with the parents of this city.
We will move along to approval of previous meeting minutes from 7:25:24. Motion to approve the minutes of 7:25:24 by Mr. Shalell, seconded by Ms. Bonolo. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we will go to old business discussion action items. Adherence of Pawtucket School District policies. School committee member conduct in relation to outside organizations. I appreciate the committee's indulgence while I dealt with a personal matter last meeting to skip this item and bring it here, but I had placed this item on the agenda after being contacted by a couple of members of the committee asking specific procedural questions about our level of engagement as members of a committee with outside organizations that interact within the school department. They were, quite frankly, questions that I didn't have the answer to. I engaged legal. That took some time to create a draft, and I think you've all gotten the final kind of summary of where this is. But I thought it important to, we hadn't spoken as a group as to how that legal draft got out to everybody, or that legal resolution. So I felt it important to put it on the agenda, explain the genesis of it, and my takeaway of it being basically that this committee doesn't have a process for policing itself internally, whether or not that be engaging in nonprofits that interact with the schools, that use school resources or materials or staff or whatever the case may be. And so I thought it important that we bring that up now, that the new committee be aware of the fact going in. Because quite honestly, I thought we covered this in our governance and rules and responsibilities. But there are instances where a committee member may overstep that line, and then that doesn't fall within the policies and governance umbrella, if you will. It would move to a more serious process that this committee is not equipped to deal with, quite frankly. There is no mechanism for us to deal with it. I'll leave it there. I thought it important to, to kind of, like I said, explain at least that very thoughtful and I thought comprehensive legal review that we were all sent. But I'll open it up for any discussions or comments or questions if anyone has anything. Ms. Fernandez.
I actually wrote this down. But, as you are aware, of the last few months, I've had concern regarding school committee members acting as individuals and not as a committee, which is how I understand it should be. I've expressed concern over committee members using their positions on the school committee for personal gain. I've clearly laid out my concerns to the committee some time ago and would like to discuss it further tonight, and asked that it did get placed on the agenda. It appears that this committee has no written policies regarding holding committee members accountable when they break the exact policies they have created and approved. I'd like this committee to take a look at creating policies and hold committee members accountable when they act in a way that can be perceived as unethical or against our policies. And so, there's a few different concerns that I have. And one is with, again, the nonprofit that is in our schools. I believe that, can I use the names? Attorney Cotton? Anything?
So just ask if names can be used with each committee, as committee members? Yes, but.
Committee members and the organization.
I'm sorry?
The committee members and the organization that I'm going to speak about.
The answer is yes, but, and the but is that, that means that any named committee member can have the opportunity to respond.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I think that's great. It can be a discussion. So it is Ms. Bonolo in the backpackers, and there's been some things that have come up that I've been made aware of. I think it was little things like not little things, but big things that kind of all came to a head when we did a walkthrough at Baldwin last week. But there were little things such as asking principals to do things without permission from the superintendent. It's just not a little thing, it's a big thing. Asking, and I don't really know when this was because a lot of information was brought to me around this from others. Asking our clerk to do things and, central office staff to do things for the backpackers, whether it's using our supplies or their time. I think it really all came to a head when we went to Baldwin last week and did the walkthrough and with the superintendent, right? Ms. Bonolo, the superintendent, and myself, and the superintendent is hearing for the first time that Ms. Bonolo has contacted the principal at Baldwin and they have put a food pantry in Baldwin, which holds a lot of her supplies for the holds a lot of the supplies for the backpackers. And I think that you're going around the superintendent, you're going around this committee to get things accomplished in the schools for your own gain. And I think that as a taxpayer, as a parent of 3 children in the school district, I will, as a school committee member, although I will not be here in 2 months from now, I have just as much stake in this. And I think that you're making phone calls, you're knocking on doors, you're insisting that you're able to go places and do things. And people are intimidated by you, and people in the schools have said it, right? They've said that they feel like when you ask them to do something, that they have to because you're a school committee member. They don't understand that we act as a community and as a committee, and we shouldn't be acting as one individual. Like none of us should be calling and asking a principal to do anything. And it needs to be addressed. And honestly, I think it's unethical. I think that you are benefiting by earning votes. Do I think that do I think that you're wrong for wanting to feed our kids? Absolutely not. Because if you know me, and many of you in this room do not know, I've dedicated my entire life personally and professionally to take care of kids. But it's the way that you've gone about it. And I think that it's time that you stop following rules. And all I can think of is, we make these people come up here and, ask us, practically beg us sometimes to come into our schools and do things. And here you are calling principals and telling principals what's going to happen in their schools without knowledge, without the superintendent's knowledge. And it needs to be addressed. And I sent the email and, we did get that draft back saying that there's basically nothing that can be done because, again, nobody is policing the school committee, which is pretty sad. It's really sad. And I think this has been a real confusing 2 years for me because I think some of you that have been on this committee for a long time act in ways that are completely unacceptable, but it's tolerated, right? And as a new school committee member, you just failing my way. But it really should stop. And I really hope that the new committee coming in has some clear guidelines as to what is acceptable and what is not, because what is happening right now with the backpackers and other things such as knocking on doors of our brand new school on the first day of school saying that you want to come in, not acceptable. And the new committee needs to understand that. And when any one of us do something wrong, somebody should be able to hold us accountable. And in defense of Ms. Bento, who comes up here week after week after week after week, like we shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't be doing that. Are we just ignoring it? Like I don't understand why there's nothing in place to hold people accountable, and we need to have something in place. I just hope that That's what I have.
I would just push back on you that it wasn't being ignored, but there was a process I felt that we had to go through to get some clarity, because I couldn't understand it either, how some of what I was hearing was being allowed to go on. So I think it may have taken more time than we had hoped for, but we weren't, it wasn't an intent to not address it. Anything else on this? Ms. County?
Yeah, I would second the need to address a policy. Again, being a new school, I resonate and empathize with being a newly elected school committee member the last 2 years and having an experience that at times was frustrating, confusing, wonderful, highs, lows, all of the things, but I am concerned about the leadership moving forward. And with a new committee and with some controversial issues on the returning committee, that I do think that it is our duty before we leave to sit down and set some policy in place to make sure that the family, the community, the superintendent and her team are protected in all of their rights, and that there is a clear vision for the leadership moving forward in that absence. So if we could put that on a policy agenda, I would be happy to sit in and support that work.
We don't have a policy meeting between now and the end of the year because first and second passage wouldn't happen with this committee. So that the carryover of policy between two different bodies doesn't really make a lot of sense because first passage happens with one body and second passage happens with a different body.
So what would be the?
So I would say that
Our
if
next step
somebody,
then?
if somebody has a policy at this point to bring, I would suggest that they draft and
Okay.
bring, because I don't, because the process of reviewing policy
Mhm.
and then having a policy committee look at
Right.
it. So I would say that there's no reason that a policy has to go to a policy subcommittee beforehand, just like we have facilities items that go right to us instead of going to a facilities subcommittee. So I would say that legal can weigh in and let you know that legal usually looks at policies before they come before this body. But there has to be a first and second passage of policy is what I would say.
Okay, so just to clarify then, so next steps would be to potentially draft a policy of accountability for school committee members to adhere to the policy and ethics, so forth. From that point on, it would then have to be noted in prior discussion items and then brought up again after a new committee is elected to ensure that it moves forward.
It needs a first and second passage on two separate meetings
Okay.
in order to become a policy. But I would like to state that we currently have policies
We have a
that,
policy.
so this is what's important to know. We have policies that dictate what has to happen in our school district. Those include bylaws of this committee. And those policies are policies of ethics that clearly state all of the items that have been brought up about not acting as individuals, only acting as a committee. There are also policies that clearly state the roles of the different people, but it is important to understand that another policy can be disregarded in the exact same way that our current policies are being
Agreed. Fair.
disregarded.
Fair.
No, I'm not saying that that's not a reason to have,
No,
but the idea that policy can be disregarded and that this body cannot act is because this body did not elect the members of this committee. So as
and that's the barrier.
so we cannot remove a member of this committee.
Right.
We can remove a chair. We can remove a subcommittee chair. We can remove a deputy chair. These are all items that we as a body can vote on and do. But we cannot say we can vote and remove Jen Carney from our table because we haven't put Jen Carney here. The voters of Pawtucket have put Jen Carney here.
Right.
So I think that that's an important item that we couldn't put a policy in place that said, if somebody violates our policies, we will do X, Y, and Z.
Correct.
However, at any point, a statement as just was made could be made about a committee member. So I mean, I think that new policies are always great.
I know.
I do love policy, but if people do not follow the policy
Mhm.
and they work for our district, the superintendent doesn't follow the policy, we can evaluate them on it and say, based on the fact that you are not following the policies we have in place, the consequence is you are no longer employed here.
Right.
The superintendent can evaluate all of the employees of this district
Mhm.
based on the policies we have.
Mhm.
But our bylaws are the same as the bylaws that dictate all branches of government in
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
you know, the only people who can remove people who have been elected to office are the people who elected them to office.
Understood. Thank you. That's fair.
Ms. Spinello.
I'd like to address the unfounded and inflammatory and overtly political allegations.
Joanne, you don't have a mic.
I know. Allegations raised by school committee member Ms. Fernandez in an email presented on 10/8/24. For the record, I only visit schools when I am invited to do so, a practice I have adhered to for all of my time on this committee. So I would also say, because of my time on this committee, I have a welcome at many schools at any time, which I do not take advantage of, but I have been welcomed into schools. I do not bully or intimidate school personnel. I ask questions. I answer every email I receive regarding school committee issues. I do not engage in personal information or specifics. I provide the appropriate course of action and check back until the situation is resolved. In other words, when a parent says they're having a problem with getting their IEP and it's taken over 6 months and their original email sits in my inbox for 6 months, then yes, I will ask them if this has been resolved. And if not, I will tell them the actions to take, which is to speak to the teacher, to speak with the principal, to bring it to the superintendent, to bring it to the school committee, or to bring it to RIDE. I always have and always will stand up for the students and staff of this district. I want to ensure that all their needs are met, and if I need to facilitate an action to achieve that, I will. I ask questions. My position is oversight. If I don't understand something, I ask. If I want financial details, I ask. That is my job. I make appropriate calls and appointments with the superintendent. I have requested 5 appointments since July of 2023 and have met with her twice. I contact the clerk of committee when I need her to act on my behalf or in accordance with policy. And that is brought about and was brought up in your email because I made a phone call to the clerk's office at 5:00 p.m. I was told when she answered the phone that her office hours ended at 4:30. I told her that I was willing to leave a message. She did not have to answer the phone. I told her what I was calling about, and it was about backpacks. And just to be clear, I will make it a point to explain. An assistant principal asked me for backpacks, plain old backpacks for their students. So I didn't have any. I knew that you had done your program and that you had the back to school celebration. I asked Miss Liss if there were backpacks available. She referred it to Ariel. I said I would send him an email. She said she would deal with it. And Ariel wrote back and said the teacher would have as many backpacks as she needed the next day. I find nothing wrong with that. I did not stand on anyone in anyone's way. I did not step on anyone's toes. And if Miss Liss doesn't want to answer the phone call after 4:30 when she's off the job, then don't answer the call and I will leave a message. I make appropriate calls and appointments with the superintendent. Okay, I did that one. My job, our job, is oversight and understanding. The clerk works for PSD from 8 to 4:30 and is paid an additional 5-figure stipend to fulfill her work of the committee, as clerk of the committee. Any questions or calls asked by a committee member should not require her to submit overtime for doing work she is paid for and has agreed to do. I founded the Pawtucket Backpackers in 2012. I relinquished my duties when I returned to work. I returned as a volunteer upon my retirement and have been volunteering since. I have never used my position as a school committee member to ask favor of any staff or volunteerism from any student. I do not solicit volunteers or donations for the Pawtucket Backpackers during school committee updates. I will inform you, as I had at the year end, that the Pawtucket Backpackers were able to provide over 115,000 pounds of food, the equivalent of 20,000 student bags during the 23-24 school year. They are currently serving approximately 500 to 550 students per week. We are not soliciting your help or your donations. That is handled through the Pawtucket Backpacker Facebook page and their offices and other media outlets in the United Way. As far as setting up school pantries, that is a request of the schools. I don't suggest it. If they ask me to provide them with food, I will provide them with food for families that need it. There were 6, there are now 3, and there are 2 full school pantries with We Share Hope in, actually 3. One in Winters, one in Shea, and another one in Cunningham. The other schools have asked for supplies such as rice, cereal, shelf-stable milk that they can put, so because our parents run out of supplies, they run out of milk, and they need things for their kids, and I will supply them gladly. I do not ask anyone to make copies of papers for me. I do not ask for anything. I have the committee has their own situation. And the Backpackers was established in 2012 under the school committee. It was approved by the school committee at that point in time. Policy BD number 1 says, recognize that the first and greatest concern must be the educational welfare of students attending public schools. In closing, I'm a proud member of the Pawtucket School Committee. I work hard in my position. I have acted on behalf of the students and staff in this district for the past 18 years. I listen, I ask questions, and I respond. I don't get angry. I don't hold grudges at opposing views. I get along with most everyone and work collaboratively with people throughout the city, and that seems to be held against me. That is not going to change. I must be doing something right. The people of this city have voted to put me on the committee for the past 18 years and continue to do so. That's all.
Ms. Finolo, are you done?
I'm done.
Ms. Doobie?
I know we could probably go back and forth on this a lot, and I just want to say that, Ms. Manolo, we've worked together for a decade. I know I didn't run for reelection, and people are continuing on. One of the reasons I didn't run is because I do think that it's time for some new voices to have a seat at this table. And one thing that you said, and then you corrected yourself, was my job is oversight. And then you rephrased and you said, our job is oversight. And I hope that moving forward with this new committee, that is the direction we can move in, because my job is not oversight. And Mr. Charbonneau's job, even as the chair, is not oversight. None of us individually have that authority to say, I'd like to see some documents because I have concerns. I'd like to see numbers because I have concerns. Because any business this committee has happens at this table. If we want to have oversight, we have it together. And that is the number one item, I think, holding this committee back. That we have people who believe that they have a right to information because they are an elected member of this body, but they don't individually ever have that right. That right exists if the majority of us say, we'd like reports on this. They go on the item, on the agenda, and they happen before the public. And the public has a right to that information too, unless it's protected in an executive session. But all of that information that is important for oversight is important for the public to see too. And that's the reason that it's so important that that business happens here. And I do hope that moving forward, that is the number one change that this committee needs to see. And I believe when I was chair, I tried to move towards that. I believe Mr. Charbonneau has tried to move towards that. But we just have to understand that individually, we hold no power to ask for reports, to ask for work to be done. That as a committee, we work as one. So I wish this committee the best. This isn't our farewell. We have more meetings together. But I wish the committee the best. And I really hope that new voices coming in, a new formation of this committee, something can make that change. So this committee starts acting as a body instead of individuals.
Ms. Conley, did you have something?
So wanted to say, Committee Woman Panola, Ms. Manolo, I saw in an elementary school one day, I was at an elementary school to train teachers and I was checking out with the principal at the end of the day. And I saw a child win a backpack full of food. And this was years ago when I worked in central office. And I didn't even really understand the backpackers and the system and the program. I just saw a child thought that they won the lottery and went home with a bag full of food. And I saw how proud and excited they were. And I am so grateful that you feed our kids and you feed our families. But I want it to be free of any idea that don't tarnish it. You know what I mean? Like, let's just make sure everything is transparent. Let's run by the policies. And we can't ask other people for information. Anyone that came to us asking for information on our families, we just wouldn't have it. But we do appreciate the feeding. We do appreciate the time. If we can figure out a way to make this transparent, that everyone feels good about it and our kids get fed. And I think that's the solution. Like, I've come here before and say, well, what are the next steps? What are the solution? What are we asking for? Because we can go on, but I think we have to come to a term of like, this is what we're asking for and this is what we need. And then move forward as a collective body so that we can actually help all of our kids get fed as well and not feel like it's one person's project, but that we could all be part of that.
I have no idea who gets backpack. I get a number from the community resource coordinator or from the social worker or from a guidance counselor. They tell me they need 73 bags and one of my volunteers will drop off 73 bags. We don't ask for anything. There is a form that, yes, they fill out.
Mhm.
It's requested by the USDA.
Mhm.
Those forms I never see. They are held at the school, by the school, and that allows them to have a greater resource of food.
I know, but it is but being in a role over data in the past, I held data governance meetings about how to collect that and when it's shredded and all of this really, I think we all want to be part of a solution to like feeding our kids and making sure our families have what they need. But we all just need that level of transparency so that we all feel good about it. And that's all it is. It's not, I don't think anybody wants this back and forth. It's like, we love it. We want to feed kids. I've seen firsthand a child go home with a backpack full of food, and this was 10 years ago at least. And so I want to be supportive of it. I just want to feel good all at the same time. and that we're all following the rules at the same time and everyone is on board with it. So just moving forward to kind of find a solution.
And just kind of back that form, like, I don't know how we do this, but I don't feel as if, our parents should be filling that out until we figure out whether or not that should happen, because, yes, you need to collect the US, I mean, the federal government needs to know how many kids we're feeding, but if that information was getting to where it was supposed to be getting, it wouldn't be sitting in a principal's desk drawer for however many years you told them to leave it sit there and shred it, okay? That information is collected and then given to somebody, but I'm not okay with that either yet until we figure that out. Like, you should not be asking a principal to have anybody fill out those forms until we can figure it out, because I would feel a little better about it if those forms were collected and sent into who they're supposed to be sent into, but the fact that they are sitting in a principal's drawer for so many years, that doesn't make any kind of sense to me. We wouldn't be collecting, the federal government would not be asking us to collect that information and just hold it.
Anything else? I just want to clarify one thing, Ms. Bonolo, and we can move on. I know you referenced that 12 years, 13 years ago, the backpackers were approved by the Pawtucket School Committee. 9 years ago, there was a meeting that occurred where the backpackers were separated from the Pawtucket School Committee. And that meeting occurred, you were present, and it was very clear that it had to be excluded completely from even the appearance of being connected to the school department. And if fast forward present day, if we're back to using school department materials, resources, all I'm saying is if or school department email lists, that's not a luxury afforded to all the other nonprofit community partners that we deal with. And so it becomes a balance question from an equity standpoint. That's it. Anything else on this? All right, moving on. New discussion, business items. Approval to seek requests for proposals for the IT package for Baldwin. Is Hirsch, who's doing IT package? Rose?
Good evening. So this agenda item was placed on your agenda specifically just for approval to go out for RFP for the IT package for Baldwin, the new Baldwin Elementary School.
To approve the RFP for IT package for Baldwin by Mr. Shalell, seconded by Ms. Bonolo. Any discussion? Roll call on the approval for the IT package for Baldwin, please.
Ms. Bonolo.
RFP.
Ms. Carney. Mr. Shalell. Ms. Doobie. Ms. Fernandez. Ms. Grant. Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes. All right, we're gonna go in rapid fire here with the fire code upgrades. Gianna, is that you?
Good evening, school committee members. As part of the plan of action, as the final or last part of the plan of action that the school district has been performing to address fire code deficiencies throughout the schools, I am here with the architectural teams for different schools. We're going to start with Shea. I have Sam Hogg here with Signal Works Architects to present the design approach we've been working on. Sorry, I just want to mention that this design approach is being presented. Yeah. It's okay. Shortness of breath, a little bit. Is the result of a series of meetings internally with the school department, historic fire department, and based on the design approach is being developed right now. The plan is to submit to RIDE in a few weeks in order for their review and / approval. So we're going to start with Shea, and I'm going to introduce Sam Hogg with Signal Architects to go over the design approach here.
Hello, school committee. It's very nice to see you today. This presentation just kind of covers some of the base scope of work that we're aiming to do at Shea High School. And I'm not sure who has control over the slides. Good. So talk over there. Sure. Should I take this? Okay. I'll go through this as quickly as possible. They're relatively basic upgrades, and I'll just try to touch base on them as we go through. Just this one arrow? Okay. So this is just a quick table of contents. I'll skip this. If you have it printed in front of you, you can use it as a reference. This scope of work is proposed for Shea as a part of the memorandum of agreement with the fire department. And this is just kind of a locus map to show where we are in the city. This is more for the authorities having jurisdiction, whether it be the fire department or historic, so they know what school we're talking about. So the first area that we're focused on architecturally is the kind of the central ornamental stair. So enclosure wise, we don't have to do anything to it. It's actually not required to be a part of the protected means of egress. So we don't need to worry about making it protected from a fire perspective. However, there are handrail deficiencies. So you can see there's some large gaps between some of the different parts of the guardrail that potentially someone could fall through. So this was built in a time when the building code allowed for this type of ornamental approach. But the fire department is asking us to make this compliant with current code. So the approach we're taking is to find sort of a decorative mesh that has a smaller gap so people couldn't potentially fall through. And then we're going to extend the top of it to be the correct height and then add a continuous handrail to provide someone with a point of support if they need to grab the handrail as they go up the stairs. The other area we need to address are the 4 protected means of egress stairs. So these do need to be enclosed with a fire protective rating. And currently there's kind of like a glazed door assembly that is not fire rated. So what we're proposing to do is to kind of provide a rated enclosure behind that piece of glazing. So we can leave the historic character of the assembly in place and then provide the fire protection enclosure kind of behind it. And we have a couple of quick slides of what that might look like. So here's the kind of like glazed assembly from the hallway side. And you can see that the glazing offers a lot of natural light into the hallway. We would be obstructing some of that natural light. So it wouldn't offer as much shared light into the space, but obviously it would provide the fire protection that's required by code. And this is what that might look like from within the stairwell. So you can see our opaque enclosure would be behind the assembly. So the assembly would still be visible from the hallway, but not from the stairwell. The historic group had some concerns with the opaque nature of the proposed assembly. So we are considering using glass block instead of an opaque enclosure. So we're going to carry this as an alternate to make sure that we can address the concern should it become a requirement from the historic department. But right now, this is not the basis of design. This is just in case historic requires us to make it transparent. In the basement, there's a slightly different condition. Obviously, we have some sprinkler standpipe penetration, so there's no shared light concerns in this example. So we were given permission to just kind of replace this with a completely opaque new assembly. And then for the remainder of the interior of the building, we're also addressing the fire protection system. That's the sprinkler system as well as the fire alarm. So this is just a quick summary. The building is currently protected at the basement level and in a couple key kind of the swimming pool and the gymnasium. And the goal of the project is to protect the entire building with the sprinkler system. And so that will entail making some upgrades to the fire alarm system as well. And we'll also be addressing any emergency lighting and exit fixtures that need to be evaluated to make sure that they're fully compliant. If there's any batteries that are dying or fixtures that are expired, we need to make sure they're replaced. And then at the exterior of the building, there are some really beautiful ornamental stairs, but unfortunately there are no handrails to go along with those stairs. So we're going to be providing handrails and guardrails as needed, as minimally as possible to the exterior of the building. We don't want to make the character of the building, impact that negatively in any way, because it is a kind of beautiful ornamental feature, but we want to make sure that there's some safety measures in place so people don't slip and fall. So this is just kind of going through where we need handrails, where we need guardrails, and where we don't need guardrails. And just looking at all the different exterior monumental stair conditions. They're all a little unique, so they have different solutions in each case. The rear stairs at the back of the building towards the parking lot, I've already had this intervention, so you can see how they address that I think this was done about 3 years ago, 2019, 2020, I believe it was. And then there's a few areas where we have, I'm not sure if this picture is very clear, but there's a landing that has a drop that's more than 30 inches. So that, and in those locations, we typically require a guardrail so someone can't accidentally fall off the edge. But the fire department's allowing us to address that concern with like planters that would be permanently placed. So it's not as visually impactful as a steel guardrail might be. And then at the rear of the building, there's a few utilitarian staircases at the exterior that are either, they have non-compliant handrails or a missing handrail. So we're just going to address all of those concerns as well. So that's the overall fire protection scope that's being proposed at Shea. Again, we're trying to give it as light of a touch as possible to keep the cost of the project as low as possible, but still meet the requirements that the fire department has in the memorandum of agreement.
Motion to approve the request, the fire code upgrade design review at Shea by Ms. Bonolo, seconded by Mr. Shalhoub. Any other discussion on the Ms. Grant?
We're hoping to go out to competitive bid in mid-November. So our ride submission and our bid package will be ready soon. I believe the construction is supposed to be finished by May, but I think that's going to be dependent on the contractor to.
So will the work be done after school in the evenings? Second shift?
So second shift before school ends, and if we need to use the summer, will be just during school day, like normal hours, first shift.
Okay.
And just to clarify, this is the stage we're at now. This is being submitted to RIDE, who will look at this, review it, and then from there, we'll be able to go out to bid once they approve it, correct? That's the stage we're at now. This is what these presentations are for, right?
That's right.
They're built for Rhode Island Department of Education, okay?
I know there's been conversation. What's the funding source for this?
So this is going to be funded out of the 234 approval bond. The bond under the 234 approval.
Are we sure about that? And not, I thought it was out of the
Oh,
capital.
I'm sorry.
reserve.
I'm sorry. Yeah, a capital. My
Okay.
mistake. Yeah.
All right, so I think it's important that we make that distinction.
Yeah, because it was originally under the bond, but then
The bond
No,
never existed.
not anymore.
Right, right.
Yeah.
The bond never existed. And so the work now is being funded out of the capital reserve. So that, because we can't use the bond money that's recently
100%.
been approved to finish off Baldwin and miscellaneous. Got it. Anything else on this? Roll call on the approval, please.
Hello. Ms. Carney. Mr. Shalhoub. Ms. Doobie. Ms. Fernandez. Ms. Grant. Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes. All right. Lyman Goff Middle School Fire Code Upgrades, Design Review for Ride Submission.
Similar to Shea, we're doing the same or similar scope of work at Goff. And we are working with BTGA Architects, and we have Nate Ginsberg from BTGA here to go over the design approach as well.
Thank you very much. As Gianna said, I'm Nate Ginsberg from Brister Thornton Group Architects. And similar to Shea, we have a plan of action from the fire marshal that we're addressing. The issues are largely the same We have two violations left at Goff. One is a handrail violation at the main entry stair. The other one is a fire rating at the egress stairs. The egress stairs are glazed wood construction, and we've actually reviewed multiple options with the Historic Commission, including replacing them all together and simulating the patterns that are there, replacing them with a metal rated storefront, providing sprinkler curtains. But I think similar to the other project, what made the most sense would be to build a firewall behind the glass and film the glass with a white film to simulate some sort of brightness coming through the glass. What Historic wants us to do is something that is ultimately reversible if there was ever a possibility of bringing the original historic condition back. So this to them is a great solution. It leaves the original material in place, but provides a fire-rated barrier for the egress stair. This is an image of what the stairs look like now, and then with white film over the glass. The historic stair has a handrail that is lower than handrail height allowed by code, and openings that are larger than are allowed by code. To address both of those things, we're proposing putting a glass guard in front of the metal that would attach to the side of the stair. And again, that could ultimately be removed at some point, or certainly you can still see the original historic condition. Absolutely, yes.
Will people be able to drop things behind the metal in between the glass, so it'll be cluttered?
There will be a
and
small gap, but it won't be sealed at the bottom. If something were to fall between the metal and the glass, it would go through.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on Goff before I move to Tolman?
Let's motion to approve the fire code design review ride submission for Goff by Ms. Doobie, seconded by Ms. Bonolo and Mr. Shalell. Any discussion on Goff? Roll call on the approval, please.
Ms. Manolo, Ms. Carney, Mr. Shalell, Ms. Doobie, Ms. Fernandez.
Yes.
Ms. Grant, Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes. All right, Goldman.
Tolman is a very similar situation. There are glass walls into the stairwell. These are slightly different. They are metal storefront instead of the wood that we saw at Goff. But the solution would be the same. There are two violations here as well. Unrated glazing, but also we have dead-end corridors. So within that building, beyond the egress stairs, there's greater than 50 feet before you get to a dead end. You have to turn around and come back. So fire code requires us to provide some sort of barrier so that someone that's trying to exit the building, possibly in a smoke-filled situation, heading the wrong direction, would be notified quickly so that they could turn around and go back to an exit. With the glazing, again, very similar situation. We're putting a rated wall behind the glass, putting film on the glass. And here's what the before and afters would look like, very similar to the other schools. For the dead-end corridor, we have multiple dead-end situations. I apologize for the tiny image at the bottom, but what we're looking at providing is the least cost solution. As we know, the building will not be used as a high school for much longer. But this is a roll-down curtain that allows someone to pass through and egress, but would provide a visual stop for someone that is looking for the egress stair. And that is acceptable to code. We did a walkthrough with the fire marshal. They found that acceptable. So we do have several situations like this where we have a egress stair and then a corridor that branches off in either direction. What we would propose is to provide that curtain at the end of the main corridor so that someone that misses this exit can quickly turn around and come back. And there are, I believe, 5 locations where we need to provide this stop.
Motion to approve the design review right submission for Tolman Fire upgrades by Mr. Shalell, seconded by Ms. Connie. Discussion. Ms. Manolo, did you have something?
The curtain,
Yes.
will that automatically come down when the
It'll-
fire?
It'll be tied into the fire alarm system, will automatically come down when the fire alarm goes off.
Just a general comment. The fact that we're talking about Shea and Tolman still after the voters approved millions, tens of millions of dollars be spent on those 2 buildings. And we're talking about putting egress curtains and, you know, I think it's a shame. And the fact that we're not talking about that we were told 2 years ago, we had $10 million to invest in Shea. And the fact that it never existed doesn't seem to matter to anybody. But I think it's important. This is bare minimum. Our kids deserve better than this. When we listen to funding about Disney musicals and everything else, this is bare minimum we're looking to do. There's a motion on the floor to approve the design review at Tolman. It's been seconded. Roll call on the approval, please.
Ms. Manolo, Ms. Carney, Mr. Shalell, Ms. Doobie, Ms. Fernandez, Ms. Grant, Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes. All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session, a review of district emergency operation plans. Motion by Ms. Manolo to adjourn to executive session in accordance with Rhode Island General Law 4246-5 for the purpose of discussing, acting upon review of district emergency operation plan. Seconded by Mr. Shalell. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, we'll be in executive session. All right, we will reconvene in public session at 7:35 PM. Ms. List, please report out the votes of executive session.
The school committee voted unanimously to seal the executive session minutes and to adjourn the executive session.
Thank you. Oh, before. No. We don't need a roll call on the. Oh, reconvene in open session at 7:36 for a roll call. Did we do a roll call vote?
Ms. Carney, Mr. Shalell, Ms. Doobie, Ms. Fernandez,
Here.
Ms. Grant, Mr. Charbonneau.
I am present. We've already reported out the votes of the executive session. One bit of housekeeping as I am looking to cancel next week's meeting. We have the November work session the first week. And then we'll have the school committee meeting that Tuesday. So next week, there's a meeting Thursday, then there's another meeting the following Tuesday. I don't know that there's a heavy agenda item to warrant both meetings. So I'm canceling the Thursday meeting. We'll continue with the normal November school committee meeting as originally scheduled. I'm sorry? No. The work session is next Thursday, and then the regular school committee meeting is the following Tuesday from that. So we had a meeting tonight. We're canceling next Thursday. We'll pick up with our regularly scheduled November meeting. All right, and Ms. List will send out that communication tomorrow and give the committee members a night of their life back next week. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion adjourned by Ms. Bonolo, seconded by Ms. Grant. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.